Some pretty good progress. We sent our president to Philadelphia to get us actually chartered with the Young Democrats, so we're an official organization now. We have a seat on the Missouri Democratic Party's executive committee, and everything is working pretty well. We have been getting good traction on social media and stuff like that, and doing what we need to do to reach out to young people. And yeah, so I wrote something up. I'm not really good off of the dome, I ramble a lot. I'm a more stats kind of data behind the scenes guy. I'm not a huge talker. So as most people probably know, young people are issue oriented, and I want to emphasize that because a poll that I lean on a lot is from Tufts University's Circle poll, which indicates that 46% of young people who voted said that they voted to support a candidate who cares about the issues they care about, compared to only 10% that voted based on party and based on they wanted their party to have power. So that shows that younger people are a bit more malleable, and if you appeal to them, you can pull them over. And the top three issues expressed, the top issues expressed by young people: the economy was at 64%, obviously. Healthcare at 28%, abortion at 27%, climate at 26%, jobs at 26%, immigration at 24%, education at 16%, democracy at 16%, and the First Amendment at 16%. So despite the large amount of young people expressing the economy as in their top three concerns, almost triple the second option, 75% of people who didn't vote listed the economy as one of their most important issues.
When is this poll from?
This is from after 2024. This is the 2024 election.
Okay.
75% of people who didn't vote listed the economy as one of their top three issues, and 61% of people who voted did the same. 40% of people who didn't vote had jobs in their top three issues, and 22% had the same. 34% of non-voters said healthcare, and 26% said the same. These issues, which are economic issues in nature, contrast with social issues like abortion, 29% of voters who didn't vote, and 29% of voters who did vote, and 21% who didn't vote said the same thing.
Are these Missouri voters, or is this nationwide?
This is nationwide.
Okay.
It was a very, very big poll, so it's indicative of young people in general. Immigration, 20% of people who voted based on immigration, and 26% didn't vote. 26% of non-voters said that immigration was in their top three issues. Climate change, if this page will turn. 29% of voters who voted said that climate change was in their top three issues, compared to 18% who didn't vote said the same. And democracy, 18% of voters who did vote said democracy was in their top three issues, and only 6% of non-voters said that democracy was in their top three issues. So that kind of paints a weird picture for me. Among the non-college educated, the top three issues were economy, jobs, and healthcare, compared to the college-educated youth, which was the economy, climate change, and abortion. Despite economic issues being the overall priority compared to social issues, people who answered with economic issues are less likely to turn out than people who listed social issues. The people who listed economic issues are also people without a college education, which means that people with a college education were more likely to turn out than people without, which in Webster County's case is only 18.6% of people have a bachelor's degree or above. To dig another layer deeper, the people contacted the least by a party or an organization were people without a college education at 52%. Meanwhile, people with a college education were contacted second highest at 71%, only beaten by Black youth at 72%. We know for a fact statistically that people with a college education vote Democratic overwhelmingly, and they're also largely financially better off and more civically engaged. The opposite is true of people without a college education, who are less likely to be financially well off and are less civilly engaged. We know from this poll that 62% of people who didn't vote said that they were struggling financially, and 59% that said they were never contacted. Those are the top two reasons people said they didn't vote. These voters shifted to Trump by 10 points compared to Biden in 2020. So young men and the non-college educated voted for Trump 10 points differently. My analysis of why is a little bit complicated, and it is pretty critical, but I think losses like this require reflection on the part of the losing party. And my analysis is Kamala simply just didn't run a very good campaign. And I don't necessarily attribute that to being her because she's a woman or because she's a black woman.
Or because she got in late.
No,
Or
the
because it has-
Democrats in general, not even just her.
Yep.
Just the Democrats ran a really horrible campaign.
Yep. And her highest polling numbers are when she first launched her campaign. And whenever she first launched her campaign, the only issues she was talking about were economically populist, talking about ending price gouging, and issues like that polled the highest. And then she started to dip into other things, move more towards the center, and that's when her polling dipped and she started losing people. And that's kind of around the same time her main focus was talking about democracy and Trump, which democracy obviously is the most important thing. That's what maintains our government. But at the end of the day, democracy is not what puts food on the table. And that's not what people are going to listen to and put into account whenever they're voting. As you can see, that only 6% of people who didn't vote said democracy was in their top issues, and only 18% who did vote said that democracy was in their top 3 issues. Yeah. So polls aren't everything, but they can be indicative. And according to her book, which I have read, unfortunately, I'm correct that Kamala Harris has not done any reflection on her loss and blames everybody but herself. She blames Biden, which Biden is partially to blame for it. His administration was not very kind to her and didn't help boost her at all. And have any of you read the book?
No.
Okay. Well, I didn't actually read it. I listened to it, but whatever.
It's
Same thing. But there's actually a large section in the book where she talks about how Biden called her and said that there were very large donors in Pennsylvania that were not going to support her because they heard that she was talking bad about Joe. And also said that before she went on their debate stage that there cannot be any daylight between them and that she cannot separate herself from him. And then she went on The View after that and said that she wouldn't do anything differently despite Biden being historically unpopular at the time. That was something very silly. And then she corrected what she actually meant, and she said, I'll put a Republican in my cabinet. Who are we supposed to vote for if we don't want any Republicans in our government? We don't have an option then. But it was progressive policy that was giving her winning numbers. And instead of taking advantage of that and galvanizing an entire group of people who are disenfranchised by the system and the parties as a whole, she didn't try to bring them in because the Democratic Party is unwilling to let them in at times. The National Party, at least, is unwilling to let them in at the time. And the Missouri Democratic Party is unwilling to let those people in. I don't believe the Missouri Democratic Party has an active progressive caucus anymore. We don't have that kind of infrastructure here. And she moved to the center to get Republican voters, and she did not get a single one. The same amount of Republicans voted for Trump in 2020 as they did in 2024, and she lost independents. And she moved more to the center than Biden was in his campaign. Why is that the case? In my estimation, Biden ran in a much more incredibly populist campaign compared to her. He focused on table issues. That is not saying to abandon social issues. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. They can't be your emphasis. The Democratic Party assumes that independent means moderate or centrist. The majority of people who are registered independents that I know are to the left of the Democratic Party. Meanwhile, Trump, despite lying about literally everything, kept his message largely based on economics and solving people's issues and their pain by getting rid of the people causing their pain, who he falsely attributes to immigrants, trans people, and Democrats. Those are not the people causing their pain. That's not the people causing their anger. And we as a party need to redirect that anger to the appropriate direction, and that is to corporations, and that is to billionaires, and that is to the people that are controlling our government that are not elected at all. To capture them because he focused his message. Somebody attacked him on something, he deflected the attack and immediately went back to he's going to do tariffs to bring back jobs, which he is not doing. So what should we do? I believe that we need to run on economically populist messaging, and we need to promise broad, sweeping, universal change, even if that's something that we're not able to actually accomplish. We can push for it, and then we can say, we tried to push for it and we were stopped. But it needs to be visible that we're pushing and we are running on this kind of change. And the reason I specifically say universal is because there are people who vote against Democrats and against their own best interest because they believe it is going to benefit people that they don't like and not benefit them at all. If we talk about universal programs, they're also going to benefit from it. Means testing is not popular at all. Things like Medicaid and Medicare are largely popular with the country. They're the largest two programs we have. People don't vote based on those. In that poll, those were not, social programs were not an issue that was listed at all. So we need to be running on programs that are broad and will fundamentally make a change in people's lives instead of running on milquetoast, tweaking around the edges and not being inspiring at all. Unfortunately, young people need a lot of motivation to be able to turn out. The only reason I do it is because I got my degree and I got my bachelor's in political science. If I don't, what am I doing with it? I'm already not making any money. I can't not be involved. We need to run on breaking up monopolies and big banks and corporations, and we need to run on making life more affordable and efficient. The example I use, which obviously this is not New York City, but Zoran Mamdani ran this kind of campaign, and he got the largest vote total in a New York City mayoral primary election in history. And I mean, he beat the former governor, and the former governor is going to get his ass kicked on Tuesday. And that's just an example, especially because a lot of the people that voted for him were first-time voters. They turned out because they were inspired. He has the largest amount of volunteers of any campaign ever. He has 300,000 canvassers in just one area. So he's inspiring, and we need to be running campaigns like that.
And he said sorry to interrupt. He said his number one thing is canvassing.
Mm-hmm.
The reason he has gotten to where he is 100% has been canvassing.
Yep.
In New York City, not the nicest place always to knock on a door.
Exactly. That's,
But
I
they
mean,
are closer together.
That's true.
It's
a lot less fuel.
that's specifically why towards the middle, I talked about how the non-college educated were the people contacted the least. That's people being called, that's people being texted, that's people being canvassed, that's people being targeted on social media.
But you understand that all of those things that you just mentioned cost a tremendous amount of money, the texting, the emailing,
Yeah, well,
and
yeah. Not necessarily. I text almost everybody in the way I filter it through Van. I individually text people. I don't use a software. I take the time and I individually text people. There's ways to get around it. I use my computer and I use an app called Phone Link. It puts my phone number on my computer and then I copy and paste. And I send text messages out to people that I'm finding on Van. We can do these things without it costing a lot of money. It just takes a little bit more work. For emailing, I used to use an app, a software called Gmass, and it's a integrated software into Google or into Gmail, and it allows you to mass email people without it being CCs or BCCs. So it looks like it is an individual email, and you can, if you have a list, you can have it send to their first name or their first and last name. You can also use MailChimp. It's a free app. You have to pay if you have a certain amount of people above
if you
it or
send
whatnot.
over 300 a month, then you have to pay.
Yeah, I think
and if you
But there's
upgrade it,
multiple different services besides just MailChimp. There's multiple ones, so you can try to split your list between.
The biggest barrier, especially to Cass since she's running for Congress, the biggest barrier is going to be Van, because it's not supplied by the party the way somebody running for the House or somebody running for the Senate is.
Right.
It is given to them for free, and it's also given to county parties for free, which is why I encourage you at least to contact every county party you have, which I imagine you already have, and have them make lists for you in their counties. They won't do it.
they're not supposed to.
You can do it if they don't have your explicit name in the script. They can have it as outreach. That's what I did for Missy Hesketh.
I'm going to
in
talk to you
Jasper.
afterwards.
Sounds good. So, like I said, it's much more inspiring to talk about and actually campaign on these universal programs that will actually help people instead of talking about tweaking around the edges and saying, oh, if you make this specific amount of money and you are a part of this specific group and you live in this specific place, you can get this benefit, and then everybody else is excluded. While it is fair to bring those people up that are much more disadvantaged than anybody else, that creates a sense of animosity among the people that are not getting it, and they're going to be resentful of a party thinking that they're not represented and they're being left out, even if it's unfounded. So we can get around that. To ensure we're reaching out to groups that actually need the information, not hyper-focusing on people that already agree with us, and we need to be doing that early. I have talked, I'm from the 7th district, I'm not from the 4th, but I have talked to our candidate running, Missy Hesketh. I have encouraged her that she needs to start phone banking and she needs to start canvassing now, at this very moment. She's wanting to wait till later. I don't think that's a good idea.
I tried to get them to do it first of the year.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it was,
We need to be, especially in these red areas, we need to be. So, for example, I had a meeting with MSU, the MSU Young Democrats, and they asked me what I want them to be doing since this is an off-term year. And I told them I want them to treat it like it is an election year. And they need to be knocking doors, they need to be calling people, and they need to be talking about issues. If there's not a candidate running in that district, if there is a candidate running in that district, canvass for them. You don't need their permission to canvass for them. You can go and knock on doors and say, hey, have you heard of this candidate? Blah, 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 blah. I'm at the MSU Young Democrats. I've encouraged them to go knock on dorm doors, canvass in the dorms.
It's good because the pain is fresh now and things are open, so the APC always be campaigning that's what he did the whole time. He campaigned Biden's entire presidency.
Exactly. You gotta strike the metal while it's hot, you know?
Well, especially now when it's SNAP going away, our government shut down, they're getting paid, everybody else isn't getting paid.
And
this is the time to bring it up.
And
if you read some of the comments on Offord and all of them, Holly, there are not very many positive telling them they're doing a good job. There are far more comments saying, get back to work.
Yeah.
Right?
he thinks he's at work though.
Well, they lie.
No, he thinks he's at work because he's going around talking to the hospitals that he's taking benefits away from.
Yeah, he's
So he-
delusional.
That's his definition of work.
He's a lot.
All right, back to.
Sorry. You guys are right, especially about the SNAP benefits. I know a lot of people that benefit from that program. I know a lot of people that benefit from WIC. And I think that our outrage obviously needs to be directed towards the federal government, partially. But Donald Trump is not going to listen to us. Our anger should be directed towards our governor, Mike Kehoe, who instead of calling a special session to raise funds to pay for SNAP, he calls for a food drive. He calls for a statewide food drive.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, he can call a special session right after the session is over to give the Royals and the Chiefs $50 million a year to try to keep them in the state. And then even if they leave the state, the $50 million is still there, so it's going to go to the Cardinals. The Cardinals aren't going to go anywhere. Why do they need $50 million from us? Especially $50 million a year. And also, the only reason that went through is because he allowed every single state senator to go into his office and say that they either wanted their property tax to be left alone, they wanted a 5% cap, or they wanted their property tax to be frozen indefinitely. And every single county is going to vote on that next year. How is that gonna affect school districts that are in counties that are gonna be frozen with property taxes? They're not gonna be able to build anything. They're not gonna be able to hire new teachers. How is that gonna affect fire districts that cover multiple counties? In Joplin is split. I don't know if you guys know this. Joplin is split halfway between Newton County and halfway between Jasper County. There's a fire station on 32nd Street, which is the split that covers both Jasper County and Newton County. How is that supposed to work if they're paying two different property taxes? How are they going to be funded? It affects, I believe the number Stephen Webster said was 2,000 different forms of government is what property tax affects. And this kind of thing should never happen. And it's going to go to court, and it's probably going to be struck down for equal protection clauses. but we shouldn't be wasting our money to do court cases they know they're gonna lose.
Right.
Do you guys, anybody know who Jill Carter is, the state senator? No, okay, well, she's awful, but she's my state senator. And she had a town hall at MSSU, which is our local university, and talking about leadership. Well, I asked her if she could explain the process they did to silence debate, to overturn our abortion rights, overturn or destroy the initiative petition process, illegally gerrymander our districts, and to get rid of Proposition A. And she lied about all of them. And then whenever she got to redistricting, she said that the federal government asked it of us, so we did it. Yeah. She voted to have a 5% count, and she covers Jasper and Newton County. What if we vote two different ways?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense. But yeah. So where was I at? So we need to ensure that we're reaching out to groups that need the information, not double dipping on people who we already know are probably going to vote for us anyway. If we need to reach out to those people, remind them a week before the election. We don't need to be talking to them a year out. We need to be talking to the people that we lost by 10 points, and part of the reason that we have Donald Trump in office again. So my answer to how we get young people involved is to be loud and inspiring and aggressive and give them tangible things like universal health care and universal college and things like that, not democracy. Because at the end of the day, like I said, democracy does not put food on your table. And it is not something that is tangible, even though it is fundamentally the most important thing, because that allows us to have the space right here. That allows us to have the government we have. But that's not something the median voter looks at, especially when they're struggling. And the majority of people who are struggling don't turn out to vote anyway.
Yeah, they're too busy.
Exactly. So we need to make sure we're reaching out to them, and to reach out to people who need to be reached out to, and do it early.
So I have a question, if I may.
First of all, thank you. That was
Thank you.
yeah.